Breaking news! The Miami Dolphins are going through a controversial phase in their history. In recent years, the team led by General Manager Chris Grier has had difficulty going far in a season. We haven't even made it to the playoffs. This certainly makes us, the fans, very upset. If you agree that Ross should fire Chris Grier and bring in a better GM, hit the like button hard. If possible, write something like this: the Miami Dolphins are a mess. Now, in the last few hours, we received news that a possible significant change in the team could happen at any moment. I'll wait for confirmation to bring it to you firsthand. Now, there's another important subject. If you thought things were calming down, think again. Everything indicates that things will heat up a lot from now on. One of the biggest conclusions? Consistency, something Miami has been looking for, especially in key positions. The tape shows a team that is working to refine its identity, making sure that when it matters most, they are executing at a high level. And one name that keeps coming up? Tua Tagovailoa. The guy continues to prove himself, and in this last stretch of games, his command of the offense has been a game changer. You see his pocket presence, his accuracy, and most importantly, his leadership. But it's not just about Tua. The offensive line, often the subject of criticism, has stepped up in ways that don't always show up on stat sheets. Protection is improving, and that's allowing the offense to function the way it's meant to. You look at the film, and you see that time in the pocket is making all the difference. Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect, and the conversation behind closed doors is definitely about tightening things up even further. Then there's the receiving core. We already know what Tyreek Hill brings to the table: speed, explosiveness, the ability to change a game with a single play. But it's the chemistry between him and Tua that's standing out more than ever. The routes are crisp, the timing is there, and opposing defenses are struggling to find answers. And don't overlook the impact of the other weapons in the passing game, because defenses that key in too much on Hill are paying the price elsewhere. Defensively, Miami has had its moments of brilliance and its areas that still need work. The ability to generate pressure has been a critical factor, and you can see the impact it has when the defense is clicking. The key word here is sustainability. Can they maintain that level of intensity throughout 4 quarters, every single week? That's what's being talked about internally. There's confidence in this group, but there's also a recognition that consistency is what separates good defenses from great ones. And speaking of consistency, special teams can't be ignored either. The details matter. The small things in field position battles, execution on kicks, these things add up in tight games. Now, here's the real question. With everything we're seeing, is this Dolphins team hitting its stride at the right time? The schedule ahead isn't getting any easier, and every game from this point forward is going to be a test of how well Miami can keep this momentum going. The foundation is there, the talent is undeniable, but it's all about finishing strong. What do you think, Dolphins fans? Is this team where it needs to be? Are there specific areas you think still need improvement? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is just getting started. And here's where things get really interesting, Dolphins fans. We've talked about the execution, the performances, and the areas where this team is showing real promise, but let's dive deeper into what's coming next and what could define the rest of this season. Because if there's one thing we know, it's that every detail matters when you're trying to make a legitimate playoff push. Let's start with the coaching staff and the adjustments they're making behind the scenes. One of the most crucial aspects of this team's success has been game planning, how they approach each matchup, how they're tailoring their strategies to attack specific opponents. And when you watch the tape, you can see that Miami isn't just running the same thing over and over, they're evolving. The offensive scheme continues to play to its strengths, maximizing the speed advantage and making sure defenses are constantly on their heels. But that also means opponents are studying Miami just as hard, looking for ways to disrupt that rhythm. So the challenge now? Staying unpredictable, staying creative, and making sure that when the pressure is at its highest, this offense doesn't become one-dimensional. On the defensive side, we have to talk about adjustments in real time. There have been moments where Miami has looked dominant, forcing turnovers, getting stops in crucial situations, but there have also been lapses. And against high-powered offenses, those small lapses can turn into big problems. The emphasis right now is on communication, on making sure that everyone is in sync because, as we've seen, one missed assignment can change the course of a game. The good news? There's confidence in this group. The talent is there. The leadership is there. It's just about putting it all together every single week with no letdowns. And here's another key factor: health. The grind of the season is real, and staying healthy down the stretch is going to be just as important as any scheme or game plan. Depth is always tested at this point in the year, and Miami needs all hands on deck if they're going to make the kind of run that fans are hoping for. We've seen how injuries can shake up a season, so keeping key playmakers on the field is a top priority. So now the question is, How does this team finish? Because all of the promise, all of the talent, all of the improvements we've talked about, it all leads to this moment. This final stretch of the season is where legacies are made, where great teams separate themselves, and where we find out if this Dolphins squad is ready to take that next step. What do you think, Dolphins fans? Is this the year Miami finally breaks through? Are there matchups ahead that worry you? Or do you believe this team has what it takes to make a deep run? Let us know in the comments, and let's be honest, Dolphins fans, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. The build-up, the grind, the flashes of brilliance. Now it all comes down to execution when it matters most. Because if there's one thing we know about the NFL, it's that potential means nothing without results. And Miami is right at the doorstep of proving whether they belong among the league's elite or if they're still just knocking on the door. Let's talk about what separates good teams from great ones. We've seen plenty of franchises put together strong regular seasons, only to stumble when the stakes get higher. The key difference? Championship caliber teams find ways to win when everything is on the line. That means stepping up in big moments, executing under pressure, and making sure that when adversity hits, and it will hit, this team responds the right way. And that's what we need to see in these final games. We know what this team is capable of. We've seen this offense put up numbers that few defenses in the league can contain. We've seen a defense that, when locked in, can disrupt even the best quarterbacks. But consistency is the name of the game. Can they sustain that intensity for a full 4 quarters, week after week, when the lights are the brightest? This is where leadership becomes everything. Tua Tagovailoa has done an incredible job commanding this offense, proving doubters wrong, and showing that he's the guy for this franchise. But now comes the biggest test of his career. These are the games where great quarterbacks build their legacies. Can he be the difference maker when a game is on the line? Can he elevate his team even when things aren't going perfectly? Because we know the talent is there. Now it's about showing up when it really counts. And let's talk about the coaching staff. Adjustments win championships. We've already seen how well Miami's game planning has worked throughout the season. But the best coaches don't just prepare well, they react well. They make the right calls in critical moments. They adapt when opponents throw something unexpected at them. And that's exactly what's going to determine whether this team can survive the gauntlet ahead. The road to the playoffs isn't a smooth one. Every single opponent from here on out is either fighting for their own postseason hopes or looking to play spoiler. That means Miami is going to get every team's best shot. There's no room for slip-ups, no room for slow starts. The focus has to be there from the opening kickoff to the final whistle. So, Dolphins fans, this is it, the stretch that will define this season. Everything we've seen, everything this team has worked for, it all comes down to what they do next. Will this be the year Miami finally makes that deep playoff push? Or are we looking at another season of what could have been? We want to hear from you. Is this team ready to take the next step? What's your biggest concern heading into these final games? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. Because one thing's for sure, this is about to be a wild ride. Fins up!